Well, this year has really sucked. This is basically the year of death for me. I've been in kind of this whirlwind. At first, when my father-in-law died, it was like my whole world fell apart. He was someone that my wife and her mom and her brother and her sisters really loved. And so I was sad for them to see the woman that I love more than any other person on this planet in such a horrible, mournful state. Was something that I couldn't deal with because I couldn't fix it. I couldn't fix the situation. But on top of just the general grief that comes with accompanying a loved one in their grief was the reality that I lost someone who was important to me, because my father-in-law really was like a second father to me. He was someone that loved me, and he repeatedly called me the best pastor that Central California Conference had, which is very silly. And he dialogued with me about pastoral things. He'd give me a pastoral scenario and ask me what I would do in that specific situation if I were also there. And we'd spend hours talking about theology, different perspectives. He and I would agree and disagree on about the same amount of things. And to lose him was incredibly the most painful loss I've ever experienced in my life. And then a few weeks ago, I lost a very dear friend from high school who unfortunately I had not kept in touch with as much as I should have. Losing Maverick was very hard for me. I still haven't cried for him, and I feel just incredibly bitter towards death. I don't feel like it would surprise me for anyone that I love to die anymore. Anyone at all could just vanish from my life in a car accident, or getting shot, or just having a health issue. It could happen to anyone. And yet the fear that it will happen, not that it just can, is so prevalent in my life. Death is scary for me because if there is nothing after this, then there's no reason to celebrate life. There's every reason to fear it. I look at the world around me and everyone rejoices immensely over the trivialest little things, when the ultimate reality is we're all heading for a box or for a crematorium. This is an incredibly bleak outlook, and this is why society rejects it. Society rejects nihilism because it's not fun, it doesn't feel good, and you can't live your life in such a state of mind. And so we go around it by doing things like hedonism, or having a sort of life philosophy that you can leave the world better for the next generation. But all that's trash, because even the next generations, the future is dark and grim. Charles Dickens had it right with the ghost of the future Christmas being basically the personification of death, because the future is a very grim place. The past and the present are really the only places we can celebrate, because the future, though there will be happy things, ultimately results in the death of all of us. Even if you were trying to live on through your legacy, like some great author, or even the pharaohs of old, your work will ultimately come to ruin. And this can be seen just in the fact that the pyramids of Giza are crumbling into nothing. These great Egyptian temples are succumbing to the elements. And those are only 4,000 years old. So the best you could do, though by human lifespan, that's certainly an incredible achievement. You could prolong your memory for about 4,000 years. But after that, there's nothing. Even if Elon Musk's grand plan of escaping this Earth and nothing blows our planet up, or we survive as a species, ultimately the fate of the stars and everything in them is the loss of energy and death. That's not fun to think about, but it's the ultimate reality of our physical world. And it's something that is the conclusion of all of ourselves. William Shakespeare, his comedies were when everyone gets married, and his tragedies are when everyone dies. So ultimately, life is a tragedy. I'm saying these things as someone who's grieving in my mind mostly, though my heart hurts incredibly. But the truthfulness that these things are being said in cannot be denied. And this, more than ever, establishes in my mind the necessity of a belief in eternity. The Bible talks about eternity being put in the heart of men and women. And I think we have this drive to survive, not just to reproduce our genetic code, but because God placed it there. God has given us this desire to continue because that's what we were intended to do. Death is not something we were intended to experience. And Jesus is the ultimate hope for the reality that we find ourselves in, because his promise of life and life eternal means that our lives do have meaning. They do have significance beyond the dying that we will experience here, and the death, the loss of my father-in-law, the loss of my good friend Maverick. I've been looking at pictures of both of them, and so many other people that I've lost, and I have to tell you, memories suck. Anyone who says, well, at least you have the memories, or they'll always be living with you with the memories, that they don't know what they're talking about. Memories, you can't hug a memory, you can't hold a memory, you can't go to Jamba Juice with a memory. And memories go colder the farther you get away from the person. But Jesus is someone who lived and he died and he rose again. And that means that our lives will have meaning, that we will be able to touch and feel and hold these people again. And so as you go into this new year, I want you to just know that death is certain. You might lose people this year, and if not this year, the next year. But there's hope. There's hope beyond this. And if you don't know how to be certain about that hope, the Bible makes the promise of adoption, that we can be the children of God. And Jesus does not reject his children. So ask Jesus this year. Make it your first resolution to be that child of God, not one constrained by fear, not one seeking to please never demanding Father, but rather to take hold of that precious promise and make it yours, because eternity is too great to miss.